The troubling figure on the fringes of British populist politics. Actually, I've just been doing a video, an interview with Azerbaijan TV about Nigel Farage and about his buckets of blood. It's not that. It's about his stranger speech. The buckets of blood really is about Arthur Lowe, and I'm going to talk about Rupert Lowe, and I get Rupert Lowe and Arthur Lowe mixed up. And Arthur Lowe, the wonderful man from Dad's Army, who was once in this brilliant film called Theatre of Blood with Vincent Price, and I sort of remember him vividly having his head chopped off while he was asleep in his bed by Vincent Price, and but the real problem with Starmer, of course, is that the plans that he's put forward in the white paper are not sufficient to sort out or to pacify the whipped up right and this obsession with migration, which is higher than in many other European countries, but lower than Canada, and lower than we actually need in order to pay for the huge number of pension aged individuals who must be cared for in the next few years. We simply don't have the taxpayers in our native population because the birth rate is going down and the age range is going up. And we need to attract people to come to invest in, to live in Britain, and to embrace our culture. And being nasty to students who come here and want to stay and want to engage, and throwing them out the moment we've creamed the money off them, is, I think, not the best way to sell Britain and to appeal for people to bail us out. But anyway, I'm sure this matter will be discussed, and also I think that Starmer's speech, the most it's done is not to destroy Farage and Reform, but to destroy his own base. They've already, many of them are already wavering because of Rachel Reeves' attack on pensioners, and now I think. I think many of those who are wavering will look towards the Lib Dems, as indeed will the One Nation Conservatives, who feel they too have been abandoned by Kemi Badenoch, and perhaps more so by Rob Jenrick, who is even closer to the Farage bark, that little dinghy that looks more unmoored by the day, and yes, maybe this rhetoric has slightly. Has slightly muted Farage, but he's got a whole plane of prejudice over which he can traverse, and I'm afraid Starmer's bid is simply going to push Reform further into an extreme position, and I think a good prime minister is there to try to make Britain a better place to live in. This is not making it a better place to live in, and I don't think it's even securing his electoral future. I think it's securing his electoral failure, and I think it's more likely either that the Lib Dems will become His Majesty's loyal opposition, or will indeed look towards a senior role in government, maybe with a small coalition. But what I really need to get to is Rupert, Rob, Arthur Lowe, low key, and that low key is not also a reference to Kanye West and the song which is dominating social media at the moment. I'll get to that as well at another point. Rupert Lowe, the independent MP for Great Yarmouth, who's narrowly avoided criminal prosecution today, but not censure, in a saga that reveals much about the combustible nature of Reform UK and the precarious state of political accountability. The Crown Prosecution Service has confirmed that no criminal charges will be brought against Low Key following an investigation into allegations that were made the threats were made towards the Reform UK chairman Zia Youssef during an incident at the Palace of Westminster in December 2024. According to Malcolm McAfee, the head of the CPS, a thorough and detailed review found insufficient evidence to meet the legal threshold for a realistic prospect of conviction. Well, Lowe has responded on Twitter and has accused Reform UK of a brutal smear campaign and painting himself as a martyr for the apparent crime of asking legitimate questions about the party's policies, leadership, and pointedly about Nigel Farage. Farage, in turn, has been described by Lowe as a coward and a viper, terms unlikely to feature in the next Reform campaign leaflet. But the absence of criminal charges is not the same as an exoneration. And separate from the CPS's announcement, a damning internal investigation led by barrister Jacqueline Perry-Casey has found credible evidence that Lowe and his staff engaged in workplace harassment and failed to confront what was termed a toxic office culture. And 2 female employees described mistreatment that Perry judged as plausibly amounting to harassment, and Reform UK expelled Lowe following that inquiry. He's not exonerated from any of that. A further formal complaint is now with Parliament's independent complaints and grievance scheme. Lowe, for his part, has denounced the entire process as disgustingly biased. I don't think that's proper grammar. Grammatical imprecision notwithstanding, Lowe insists the allegations are outright lies. But the spectacle raises broader questions about political culture in populist movements where loyalty is valued over scrutiny and dissent is treated as betrayal. So what are we to make of this? Firstly, I think it confirms that Reform UK, for all its claims to moral clarity, is enmired in internal factionalism and disarray. Secondly, it shows that populist figures are not immune to the very toxicity that they claim to want to purge from Westminster. And thirdly, it reminds us that the failure to prosecute doesn't mean a person has acted ethically or honourably. And Rupert Lowe may have escaped the courtroom, but he has not escaped public scrutiny or the slow erosion of his political credibility, which I think doesn't get any stronger by being an independent in a large Commons chamber. Independents don't thrive in British politics at that level. So I think he's very much on the way out. But who knows? If it's so easy for one of the central figures in Reform UK to be jettisoned, then I wonder how soon it is before Sarah Potchin, is her name Sarah Potchin, the person who's just been elected, who's accused Starmer of trying to out-reform reform. Well, he's not the only one. Kemi Badenoch's trying to out-reform reform, and Robert Jenrick is trying to out-reform reform. Everyone, except for the Lib Dems, is trying to out-reform reform. And I suppose Rupert Lowe would like to out-reform reform, but I think Lowe is on the way out generally. And that's probably an exit through which many of the 5 remaining Reform UK MPs will be travelling.